You've felt it, haven't you? That strange current in her smile, warm but loaded. A sweetness so strategic, it slipped past every defense you swore you had. Her presence, disarming. Her silence, louder than logic. You didn't just meet a woman, you met a puzzle. And not the kind meant to be solved, but survived. Brother, this isn't romance. This is the arena. What if I told you that most men aren't losing in life because they're weak, but because they are unaware? Unaware of the rules, unaware of the stakes, unaware that behind beauty lies biology, behind affection lies adaptation, and behind every test she gives is one you were never taught to pass. This isn't bitterness. This isn't fear. This is the ancient mirror being held up again. And like Socrates, I won't give you answers. I'll give you questions. Because only a man who asks rightly ever sees clearly. So ask yourself this. Why is it that what draws you to her also has the power to unravel you? Is it the shape of her body? Or the way she reads a room before you speak a word? Is it her tenderness or the hidden edge inside it? Her vulnerability or the control beneath it? You think you're in love, but what if you're in a trance? Socrates called it madness. A madness born when reason is abandoned, when the soul forgets its compass and chases the echo of a touch instead of the truth behind it. He warned of a life unexamined, but he especially warned of a desire unexamined, because that is where men collapse without knowing they've fallen. Let me make it plain. She is not your downfall, but your failure to understand her might be. You see, her beauty was never meant to bless you, it was meant to test you. Her attention is not the gift. Your response to it is the answer. And that answer echoes who you are, not just as a man, but as a being. In ancient Athens, Socrates didn't chase flattery. He didn't kneel before the crowd. He stood in the center of contradiction, with clarity as his shield and conviction as his sword. And he knew, you don't conquer the feminine by controlling it. You conquer yourself. And in doing so, you no longer need to conquer anything. Most men are still boys in disguise, searching for mother in a lover, for safety in a seduction, for meaning in a mirror that isn't theirs. But the feminine wasn't built to give you identity. She was built to reflect whether you have one. And if you don't, she'll show you, she'll test you, she'll strip you bare, not to punish you, but to expose the parts of you that still belong to the crowd, to the lie, to the fantasy that says, she will save me. She won't, she can't, because that's not her nature. That's not her code. That's not how nature works. She doesn't build thrones, she checks if you deserve one. Do you feel it now? That ache in your chest? That slow realization that the world sold you a soft lie instead of a hard truth? That love without self-mastery isn't love, it's addiction? Then listen closely. This is your moment. This is your turning. Not against her, but toward yourself. Because the man who doesn't know what he stands for will fall for anyone who seems like a place to land. And when that happens, when your purpose gets traded for her presence, you haven't found love, brother. You've lost yourself. And the worst part? She'll feel it. She'll know. Not in your words, not in your gifts, not even in your promises. She'll feel it in the shift of your spine, the hesitation in your truth, the collapse in your core. And she will pull away, not out of cruelty, but out of calibration. She mirrors you, not your hopes, but your posture, not your dreams, but your depth. If your foundation shakes at her distance, you never had a foundation, only a desperate hope she wouldn't leave. But here's the paradox. The man who can walk away, the man who doesn't need her to feel whole, that man is the one she will not want to leave. Because she wasn't designed to be your source. She was designed to orbit it. This is your Socratic moment. The test isn't her, it's you. So stand still, breathe deep, and ask yourself with fire in your chest, what am I really chasing? Her or clarity? There's a kind of man walking around today, polished, loud, productive, but underneath, starving, not for food, not for success, but for her validation, and it's killing him slowly. You see, there's a war inside the modern man, But it doesn't look like war. It looks like praise addiction, like late-night scrolling, like silent compromises. It looks like building a life around her smile instead of your mission. It looks like dressing ambition in lust and calling it love. But Socrates warned of this. He called it the tyrant soul, a man no longer led by reason, but enslaved by appetite, chained to whatever satisfies him for a moment while his true self withers. Ask yourself, have you ever noticed how quickly your vision blurs when she approves? How your values shift when you think she's watching? How easily you become pliable, agreeable, even forgettable, just to avoid her silence? This isn't masculinity. This is mental exile. You've left your kingdom to chase a whisper of warmth. And the worst part, she knows it. She may never say it. She may even reward it for a while. But eventually she will feel what your soul no longer holds. Wait, you gave up your fire to keep her warm, and now she's cold anyway. That is the curse of the man who replaces his principles with her presence. You thought you were loving her, but you were actually abandoning yourself. Because listen carefully, a woman is not drawn to your affection. She's drawn to the force of your center, your stillness, not your sprint, your alignment, not your approval. The moment you place her above your purpose, you've already lost both. Socrates taught that the soul has three parts: reason, which should lead; spirit, which gives us fire; appetite, which craves and consumes. When appetite rises above reason, the soul fractures, and the man, he stops leading. He starts orbiting, not around truth, around her mood, around her needs, around her expectations. You've seen him, the man who rewrites his entire calendar the moment she calls, the man who filters every sentence through the fear of losing her, the man who preaches confidence, but negotiates his worth the second she frowns. And if you're honest, maybe you've been him, but understand, this isn't about guilt. This is about awakening. Socrates didn't shame the lost man. He examined him. He understood that most men are not malicious. They're just unaware. Unaware of how deeply they've been conditioned to believe their wholeness lies in her eyes. But it doesn't. It lies in the mirror you're too afraid to look into. And that mirror is brutal, because it shows you how often you've betrayed yourself just to be seen. You stayed when you should have walked. You agreed when you should have spoken. You smiled when your soul screamed. You thought you were keeping the peace, but you were murdering your voice. And the tragedy? She can feel it. She can sense when a man is disconnected from his essence. She doesn't need words. She reads your subtle flinches, your pauses, your pleasing. And in her biology, centuries old and carved by survival, she registers one thing: he is not safe to follow. Because if you can't stand up to her emotion, how can you stand up to the world? And that is the unspoken law of attraction you were never taught. A woman will not trust the man who needs her more than he needs his path. Let me say that again. She will not trust the man who needs her more than he needs his path. This is not cruelty. This is calibration. She tests to see if you break, not out of malice, but out of nature. And when you break, she stops believing in you, even if she stays, even if she smiles, even if the pictures still go on social media. She knows, because every test she gave you wasn't a trap. It was a map, and you ignored it. Brother, there's no shame in falling, but there is in staying down. There is in building an entire life on the idea that if she's happy, I'm enough. That's not love. That's emotional servitude. Love is not the abandonment of the self. It's the alignment of two sovereign souls moving toward truth, not validation. Socrates never said to avoid the feminine. He said to understand it, to examine your desire for it, to refine your posture before entering its fire. Because fire can warm you or consume you. The difference isn't her, the difference is you. Let's get honest. Most men don't fall in love with a woman. They fall in love with the way she makes them forget who they are. Think about it. The warmth in her voice, the soft touch, the validation, the spark. You start to believe it's her you're addicted to, but you're not. You're addicted to what she distracts you from. Your unfinished business, your quiet loneliness, your uncertain purpose, your fragments of identity still searching for glue. You don't love her, you love the silence she gives you from your own mind. And that is not love, that's sedation. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But let me give you its modern shadow. The unexamined love will cost you your soul. Because if you don't know why you want her, you'll never understand what she's doing to you. Desire without reflection becomes devotion without discernment. You start calling things sacred that are just strategic. You start calling things destiny that are just dopamine. You start calling things intimacy that are just emotional escape routes. And one day, she leaves, and you're not just heartbroken, you're hollow, because you built a cathedral around her instead of yourself. And now that she's gone, there's nothing left but dust and echoes. Let me be brutally clear. You cannot build a meaningful life on top of feminine attention. You can enjoy it, you can honor it, you can cherish it. But if it's your oxygen, you've already stopped breathing. Men today are collapsing not because of her rejection, but because of their disconnection. They've forgotten how to generate power from within. They've outsourced their strength to her smile, their clarity to her comfort, their vision to her validation. And then they wonder why their mission falls apart when she walks away. Brother, your mission shouldn't change because of her presence. It should reveal whether you're worthy of hers. That's the real standard, not how much she loves you, but how little you lose yourself in the process. Because if your foundation cracks at her withdrawal, it was never a foundation, only a fantasy with good lighting. And here's the paradox. She doesn't want to be the center of your life. Not really. She may say she does. She may even believe it. But deep down, in the marrow of her being, she wants to see if you'll stay centered without her. Because that's the man she can trust. That's the man she can soften around. That's the man she will follow, not because he demands it, but because his gravity is undeniable. You're not here to be a candle flickering at the mercy of her wind. You're here to be the forge, steady, strong, silent. You're not here to be her emotional support system for every passing feeling. You're here to be the anchor that reminds her what stillness looks like. Not out of arrogance, not out of control, but out of inner architecture. The kind of architecture built only in solitude, in suffering, in the dark nights where no one claps and no one sees. Socrates didn't ask men to avoid the feminine. He asked them to climb beyond it, not to discard it, but to place it in its proper orbit. In the Symposium, he speaks of love as a ladder. At the bottom, attraction to the body, then the beauty of many bodies, then the beauty of minds, then the beauty of truth. Most men get stuck on the first rung because it's warm there, it's validating, it feeds the ego, but it also weakens the soul because the body is temporary, the chemistry is chemical, and the connection, if built on need instead of clarity, is a time bomb waiting to explode. So what does this mean for you? It means she is not your destination. She is the signal. She shows you where you are strong, where you are lost, where you've compromised, silenced, surrendered, not to her, but to your own unexamined hunger. So ask yourself, do I chase her because I love her, or because I fear my own emptiness? Do I serve her to honor her, or to manipulate her presence? Do I remain loyal because I am aligned, or because I am afraid of being alone? The man who cannot answer these questions isn't ready for her, because she isn't just sweetness and scent. She is a mirror, and a mirror doesn't flatter. It reflects. What she reflects in you may be uncomfortable. It may even hurt, but it's accurate. She will not heal your wounds. She will reveal them. She will not fix your lack of purpose. She will amplify it. She will not anchor your life. She will expose whether it was ever anchored to begin with. This is the truth Socrates hinted at, not with fire and fury, but with stillness and silence. The feminine is not your enemy, but your misunderstanding of her might be. And your failure to master yourself in her presence, that is the real danger. There's a hidden tragedy in modern manhood. Men believe that if they're loving enough, gentle enough, patient enough, devoted enough, she will stay. That love can be earned like a job, managed like a brand, negotiated like a treaty. But Socrates knew, what you chase owns you. What you kneel before rewrites your name. So here's the bitter truth. The more you try to secure her love through performance, the faster you lose the very respect that love needs to survive. Because a woman may admire your kindness, your effort, your attention, but she will only trust your soul if it cannot be moved by her storms. And the paradox? That's the very soul she will follow. Not because you controlled her, not because you seduced her, but because you didn't collapse in the face of her test. You see, she's not watching what you say. She's watching what shakes you. She's watching if your boundaries bend when her eyes water, if your direction dissolves when her tone sharpens, if your fire dims when her silence stretches too long. And if it does, she knows. She knows your strength is conditional. She knows your center is borrowed. She knows you are a man still waiting for permission to be whole, and she cannot respect that, no matter how much she wishes she could. Because here's the truth few men can stomach. She doesn't want to lead you. She wants to feel safe under your leadership, not because she's weak, but because her design requires a frame she doesn't have to hold up. If you abandon your post, your mission, your truth, your command, she may take the throne, but she will hate it. She may stay for a while. She may even say she's proud. But something inside her begins to shrivel because now she's protecting the man who was born to protect her. And no instinct within her respects that inversion. She wasn't meant to carry the frame. She was meant to expand within it. And when the man forgets that, when he hands her the crown, hoping she'll reward him, she tests harder. She withdraws deeper. She mirrors his uncertainty with even more chaos, because chaos is the only language a weak frame understands. Socrates would have never begged for her favor, because favor isn't requested, it's magnetized. The man who cannot live without her doesn't deserve her, because he doesn't even have himself. He doesn't walk forward in vision. He walks in circles of doubt, constantly seeking feedback instead of direction. And this is the slow death of masculine dignity. Not rejection, but dependence. A man who orbits her mood loses his edge, his fire, his clarity. And a woman will never fall in love with a man she can steer with emotion. She might enjoy the attention. She might use the control. But deep in her bones, she knows he does not command my reverence. Not because he's bad, not because he's weak, but because he's not anchored. And she can't relax into someone who shifts with her every wave. So what do? You stop. Stop outsourcing your power to her perception. Stop treating love like a prize you win by surrendering your frame. Stop confusing devotion with self-erasure. You were not designed to be consumed by the feminine. You were designed to contain it without losing your shape, like the banks of a river. She is the flow, but you are the edge that gives her direction. If you collapse every time the river rises, you weren't a man, you were a sandcastle. This is what Socrates meant by the examined life. Not just thoughts, but posture. Not just ideas, but alignment. A man must know his limits, own his longings, honor his mission, or he will sell all three for a few nights of comfort and call it love. But it's not love, it's forgetting. And you, brother, were not born to forget. You were born to remember the man you are without applause, without agreement, without her, because that's the only man who can truly love her. Not from need, but from overflow. And when she meets that man, she doesn't challenge him to dominate. She doesn't test him to manipulate. She relaxes because she has found something rare. A man whose soul does not sway with every breeze. A man whose presence does not fluctuate with her moods. A man who knows who he is before she speaks a word. Socrates didn't spell this out in hashtags, he lived it. While others praised the crowd, he praised the constant. While others feared rejection, he feared self-deception. So if you want to lead, to love, to hold space for the storm without losing the shore, start by remembering this. You don't need her to stay. You need you to remain. Remain centered. Remain clear. Remain aligned. Not with her mood, but with your mission. Because the moment she realizes your fire burns, whether she's watching or not, she will know, and she will follow. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it by never needing it in the first place. She doesn't want your poetry. She wants to feel your gravity, not your lines, not your softness, not even your promises. She wants to stand next to you and feel something in her bones that says, "This one won't fold." Not because you're hardened, but because you are whole. You see, most men confuse love with acceptance. They believe that if she accepts them, validates them, touches them, praises them, then they matter. But Socrates whispered a warning through the ages. If your identity requires her affirmation, you don't have an identity. You have a mask. And the tragedy, she'll see it, she'll kiss it. She might even love it for a while, but she won't trust it. Because masks are for the stage, not the home. They perform well, but they crumble in intimacy. So what happens? You begin shrinking 1 inch at a time. You agree when you should disagree. You stay silent when you should speak. You give her your world and call it love. But what she receives is not love. It's a man who has abandoned his own inner throne. And a woman cannot build a kingdom with a man who can't hold his crown. That's why she tests you. That's why she pushes. Not to destroy, but to reveal. Because deep down, she's not asking, "Do you love me?" She's asking, "Can you hold your mission when I challenge it?" That's what she respects. That's what she's looking for. That's what moves her. Not your admiration, your alignment, not your promises, your posture, not your obsession, your orientation toward the higher. Because she knows, and Socrates knew, that a man who orbits his soul's compass is a man no one can manipulate. Not her, not the crowd, not the culture. And that is the man who can actually see her, not just her body, her beauty, or her charm, but her design. He doesn't hate her complexity. He honors it. He doesn't resent her tests. He recognizes them. He doesn't try to fix her. He remains fixed in himself, and from that place guides her back to her essence. Not by command, by example. But here's the test for you. Can you be that man, even when her love is absent? Even when her tone is sharp? Even when she walks away? Because if your strength disappears when she does, it was never strength. It was dependency in disguise. You were never sovereign. You were leasing confidence from her smile, and the moment she took it back, you collapsed. This is the arena Socrates pointed toward, not just the public square, but the private fire where every man must face his hunger and ask, "Is this real? Or is this just the echo of my fear begging to be filled?" You were not built to chase her devotion. You were built to carry truth. And if she's aligned with that truth, she will join you. If not, she will leave. Either way, you remain unchanged. Because you were never defined by her presence, only revealed by it. That is the difference between a man who wants to be loved and a man who is ready to love. One reaches out in longing. The other stands in clarity. One pleads for acceptance. The other offers direction. One falls into her emotions. The other holds his frame so she can safely feel hers. That's what she's waiting for. Not a man who needs her to stay. A man she chooses to stay with because his presence makes her more of who she truly is. And that choice, that kind of love, cannot be faked, cannot be forced. It is earned in silence, in fire, in the hours when no one is watching and every part of you wants to compromise. But you don't. You stay still. You stay firm. You stay you. Because you've tasted the cost of betrayal, not hers, but your own. And you've sworn never to commit it again. And when she feels that immovable center, she may fight it, she may test it, she may run from it. But if she is a woman in rhythm with her own design, she will come back, not to your praise, not to your gifts, but to your presence. Because it is rare, and it is real, and it is enough. Socrates didn't seek to control the external. He ruled the internal. And in doing so, he became the kind of man who could walk through the madness of Athens, through mockery, through exile, through death itself, without losing his soul. That's the bar. Not popularity, not romance, not peace at all costs. Alignment, that's the crown. Wear it and let her choose you, not because she completes you, but because she recognizes you never needed her to. You've heard enough. Enough to feel the truth burning in your chest like an old memory you never gave words to. This isn't about her anymore. It never really was. This has always been about you. Not the boy she smiled at, not the man she praised, but the soul beneath all of it. The soul that's been waiting, not for her touch, but for your command. So now let's get brutally honest. You don't want her love. You want yourself reflected in her eyes. And when she pulls away, when she withholds, when she disappears, it's not her you miss. It's the illusion you saw in her presence. The one that told you, you are enough. You are seen. You are chosen. But brother, hear this with thunder. You do not need to be chosen. You need to choose yourself so relentlessly that even her absence cannot undo your presence. Because when you finally choose yourself, not with ego, but with examination, you stop orbiting everything that was never your axis to begin with. Her validation, beautiful, but optional. Her attention, lovely, but not your compass. Her affection, a gift, but never again your oxygen. You've tasted that addiction. You've seen what it costs, how it softens your edge, dilutes your fire, bends your back until you're kneeling at the altar of emotion, calling it romance. But Socrates would have looked you in the eye and said, rise, not against her, not above her, but beyond the lie that says your worth is something she gets to decide. You were not born to be soft where you should be sharp. You were not made to mold to every mood. You were not crafted to trade your mission for her momentary attention. You are a force, but only if you remember. Remember who you were before the world told you to shrink in the name of love. Before the culture sold you docility as depth. Before every sitcom and slogan taught you to apologize for your backbone. You were made to walk upright, to think independently, to love with strength, to lead with silence, to protect without permission, to give without needing in return. That is what Socrates meant by a life of virtue. Not moralism, alignment, not control, command, not dominance. Direction. A woman will never love a man who is afraid to be without her. She might need him. She might use him. She might even marry him. But love, true love, that is reserved for the man whose integrity holds shape even when hers falls apart. He becomes a mirror not of her wishes, but of what's real. He doesn't flatter, he illuminates, and she either rises in rhythm or walks away. Either way, he doesn't chase, because a man who lives by principle, not persuasion, a man whose mission burns brighter than his lust, a man who loves without losing, that man cannot be broken, only revealed. That man cannot be manipulated, only met. That man cannot be forgotten, because he leaves a mark not on her skin, but on her soul. She will remember him not because he tried to please her, but because he never betrayed himself to earn her. And if you've been that man before, and you lost him, then this is your return. Not to control, not to revenge, but to clarity. You no longer need her to understand you. You understand yourself. You no longer beg her to stay. You invite her into the orbit of your sovereignty. You no longer wait to be chosen. You build something so whole she can only choose to stay or be left behind. And that's the final truth. You are not here to kneel at the feet of love, hoping it looks back. You are here to stand in such alignment that everything not rooted in truth simply fades. You don't demand loyalty, you command it by presence. You don't chase the feminine, you channel it through strength. You don't become the man she wants. You become the man you were meant to be. And let her recognize what you no longer need her to name. So now, choose your path. Rise without rage. Stand without apology. Lead without begging. Let the old self die. Let the hunger become focus. Let the heartbreak become discipline. Let the silence become scripture. Let her be mystery, but you be unshakable.